Good morning, students. Welcome back to the English Channel Prime. Students, today in this session, we'll learn about the second chapter of social science, that is history, the rise of the English East India Company. Children, histories are like the stories. Stories may be imaginary, but these are the real facts that happened in the past. So in this chapter, we'll discuss that how East India Company that entered into India for trading became a ruler of our country. How in the struggle for power, Britain emerged victorious and transformed itself from a trading company to an imperialist nation. It all started in the year 1600 when the East India Company acquired a charter, a written grant, a written order from Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade in East. With this charter, the company had no fear of competition, as no other company of England could trade in East except the East India Company. So with this charter, the company could venture across any new oceans, looking new lands for goods at cheaper rates such as spices, silk, cotton clothes, and sell them at the higher price in Europe. But children, was it easy for East India Company to trade in the East? No. When it entered India, it found some competitors who were already trading. So who were they? They were they were the Portuguese who entered India in the year 1498 when Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India, and he reached via Cape of Good Hope in 1498 and arrived at Calicut, Kerala. Children, I had shown you I had attached the map of the routes to India in the 18th century. You can figure out. And after that, the even the Dutch arrived in Pulicat in 1595, and then came the French in Pondicherry in the year 1664. So these all settlements, even I have shown you in the attached map. You can see all the European settlements throughout the 18th century, and because of the arrival of all these European settlements, this created a huge problem as the good became more expensive, resulting into less earning for the East India Company. So now, what did the company do then? So, in order to safeguard its interest, each and every trading company entered into a trade war. Trade war meaning they started sinking the ships of their rivals, they blocked the routes, they fortified their trading posts, their warehouses. So, these all lead to a fierce battle among these trading companies. Now, the next one is the Anglo French struggle. Children, by the 18th century, the British and the French got established because the Portuguese had lost their monopoly and the Dutch also had been defeated by the Britishers. So, only the French and the Britishers got established, and taking advantage of the decline of the Mughal Empire and the political instability in South India, the French and the British fought 3 wars to control the trade, to capture the Asian market. So these wars are called as the Carnatic Wars. So we'll first discuss about these 3 Carnatic Wars. The 3 Carnatic Wars are the First Carnatic War. It started in 1746 to 1748, and the second for Carnatic War that started from 1749 to 1754, and the third Carnatic War that started from 1757 to 1763. So let's discuss what happened in the first Carnatic War. Children, when in 1742 there was a war that broke out in Europe between France and England, and as its influence, it also spread to India because the South Indian Nawab, the Carnatic Nawab, was very weak. So, taking that advantage, they continued the war from 1746 to 1748. And as it ended in Europe, it also got ended in India too. So, what was the result in this? By this war, actually, there was no territorial gains, but the rivalry increases, and it also exposed the weakness of the Carnatic Nawab. And third, Dupleix, the governor of the French company, he came out as a very capable person through this first Carnatic War. The next second Carnatic War, in 1748, again, what happened? The Carnatic and the Hyderabad rulers died. So Dupleix and from the British East India Company, Robert Clive, they both wanted to set up their puppet rulers in these states. They both wanted to intervene in the state affairs. So, under the able leadership of Robert Clive, he was a young clerk in the British East India Company who managed to promote to the governor rank. Afterwards, he managed to defeat the French, and he made Muhammad Ali the Nawab of Carnatic as their nominee, as a puppet ruler. So, what was the result? By this Second Carnatic War, the French accepted the defeat. They signed a peace treaty, and they also accepted that Dupleix. They sent Dupleix to back to France, and also they led to the establishment of the British control over the Carnatic. Now, the last Third Carnatic War had changed the perspective of all these wars. In the Third Carnatic War, it started in 1757. When another war broke out between England and France in Europe. And exactly in 1757, the English managed to gain control over Bengal because they got victorious in the Battle of Plassey. That is a very important battle that we'll discuss in detail after this Carnatic Wars. So, because of that victory, the British now can use the rich resources of Bengal to overpower the French. The French had a constant shortage of funds. So finally the French were defeated in 1760, and this Carnatic War ended in 1763 as it ended in Europe. So what was the result of this Third Carnatic War? Because of this Third Carnatic War, all the French settlements in Pondicherry, they were returned to French, but they were not allowed to build any forts or any station troops or any soldiers. They cannot keep any army in these territories, and they can serve only as a trade center. And they had to live in the as per the protection by the protection of the British. So the English became now powerful, and they got the political influence all over Carnatic. Done. Now, what are the reasons for the success of the British? Children, there are 5 major reasons. First is the British naval supremacy, the financial stability, the capable leadership, the freedom from government control and interference, the conquest of Bengal, and the Battle of Plassey. And finally, the Battle of Buxar in 1764. Now let's discuss how these are helpful to the Britishers. Because of the naval supremacy, they got an uninterrupted supply of arms and resources from England, and because of the financial stability, because of the captivity of the rich and prosperous Bengal, Odisha, Bihar, all those states, they became financially stable, and they had the leadership of Robert Clive, the Warren Hastings, and others. So they are able leaders, and they were very free from the government control and interference, because only East India Company had the trade monopoly, had the independently they can function. And next is the conquest of Bengal. As I say, Farrukh Shiar and the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb had given him authority to do the trade free of cost without without any custom duty or taxes. So that was being exempted by Aurangzeb and Farrukh Shiar in the year 1691 and 1717, through which they had the privilege to do business, to do the trading in Gujarat, Deccan, and Bengal. So these are the reasons they got success in these the Carnatic Wars. Now next is the Battle of Plassey. Students, as I said, there was firmans granted by the Mughal emperors like Aurangzeb and Farrukh Shiar for duty-free trade. The officers of British East India Company started using this firman of duty-free trade for their own side businesses too. So that resulted in huge losses of revenue to the Nawab of Bengal. That time, Murshid Quli Khan, he was a very powerful, strong ruler. He ruled between 1717 to 1727, and he started protesting against this. Murshid Quli Khan was the first Nawab of Bengal. Then came Alivardi Khan, and then his successor was his grandson Sirajuddaula. And this new Nawab of Bengal refused to grant any concession to the Britishers, and also demanded large tributes, large taxes from the company. He accused the company of deceit by not paying revenue and tried to humiliate Nawab by writing disrespectful letters to him and his officials. So he also stopped fortifications by the company. So the rival between the company and the Nawab intensifies as company declared that it is just unjust demand of officials as could ruin its trade and enlarging its settlements. So it was led to the Battle of Palashi, and it had got its name from the Palas tree that was found mostly in the Bengal. I had shown you it has beautiful orange color flowers, so it has got the name Palasi War from that. And I had shown you the place, the map of that place, Palasi, which was today it is in the Nadia district, which was close to Murshidabad, then the capital of Bengal, when the ruler was Sirajuddaula. And as I said, Sirajuddaula, he became the Nawab after the death of his grandfather Ali Bardi Khan, and he at once ordered the Britishers to pay the revenue and stop fortification. And all this, and he, with the help of his 30,000 soldiers, also captured the officials of the English factory at Kashim Bazar and also established his control over the Calcutta's Fort William. So all these incidents resulted into the Battle of Plassey, in which Robert Clive, he was now promoted as an army officer in East India Company, he defeated Sirajullah. And the main reason behind his defeat was that the army led by the commander Mir Jafar never took part in the battle. He refused to battle, and because he was promised to be the next Nawab of Bengal by Robert Clive. Children, here I would like to add little more about Mir Jafar, the main treachery because of whom the Sirajuddaula felt was defeated. So he was a penniless adventurer when he came to Bengal. Ali Bardi Khan appointed him as the head of a 7,000 cavalry and also arranged his half sister's marriage to him. But Mir Jafar, he started a conspiracy to kill the Nawab and was caught. So Ali Bardi Khan removed him from his position. But afterwards, Sirajuddaula forgave Mir Jafar and appointed him as the commander-in-chief for the 7,000 cavalries. But again, he started deceiving the Nawab, and he, because of his treachery within the Nawab's army, Sirajuddaula was defeated. And Mir Jafar, he secretly joined his hands and with the British, and they had promised to make him the Nawab after crushing Sirajuddaula. So this is a turning point in Indian history, and it has an immense importance because it paved the way for the British dominance over Bengal and eventually the whole of India. Children, there are many interesting facts to this Palashi War. So I had given the details in the pictures. You can go through this to know how he deceived the Bengal Nawab and win over and became the Nawab of Bengal. Now, what happened after the Battle of Plassey? As I said, Mir Jafar became the Nawab of Bengal, and the East India Company got free trading rights in Bengal. Second, the British got the Jamindari of 24 pragnas, and they utilized the resources of Bengal to maintain a large and well-equipped army through the money of the Bengal Nawab. The British also started draining the wealth from Bengal because the company was not getting enough fund now from England. Now, the English also proclaimed Mir Jafar as the Nawab of Bengal, and Mir Jafar had to pay huge sum of money to the British company as compensation for the attack on Calcutta. Children, I had given the exact historical facts or pages from the history. You can go through this, and in addition to that, he paid large sum of gifts and bribes to the officials of the company, and so the Battle of Plassey just increased the prestige, the power of Britishers. Now Mir Jafar, he became a puppet ruler, but even he could not meet the never ending demands of the company's officials, and when he denied, he was outthrown from that position. Now Mir Jafar was replaced by Mir Qasim as the Nawab of Bengal in 1764. But Mir Qasim, he refused to become a puppet ruler. He tried to improve the administration, he tried to train his soldiers, and this was not accepted by the Britishers. So again, another war happened that was called as the Battle of Buxar, and it was fought between the British and Mir Qasim. And Mir Qasim, he formed an alliance with the Nawab of Awadh, Shujaudullah, and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. So their combined army now met the British forces at the Battle of Buxar in 1764, where here the English defeated them. This is all also because of many conspiracies and many treacheries happened in between. So the Britishers defeated the some 50,000, 40 to 60,000 soldiers of Mughal emperors, and they got win over it. In Palasi, the British defeated only a young Nawab Sirajudlah, who was of 23 years old at the time of becoming Nawab. And but here, because of the treachery, because of the deceiving conspiracies in Buxar, the British defeated the three powerful and hard battle rulers. So after this battle, the powerful Nawab of Awadh was left at the mercy of the British. The Mughal emperor, they were now became the prisoners of the British, and the from the Nawab of Bengal, the British got the right of Diwani. Diwani, from not only to right, they didn't get the right to collect the land revenue from Bengal, but also from Bihar and Odisha. So, a dual government was established in Bengal, where British collected the money, the revenues, the taxes, the land revenues, etc. But the administration, maintaining of the law and order, the maintenance of the armies were all looked after by the Nawab. So Nawab had only responsibilities without any financial stability or financial power. Okay, so rich revenues collected from these Bengal provinces now it make the Britishers more powerful, and they can easily meet the expenses of the East India Company, and can now increase their trades and maintenance of the troops. So now how they expand, how expansion of the company's rule happened, let's discuss. Now, the company officials became Nawabs. As the company acquired more power and authority, the company officials began to imagine themselves as the Nawabs. They wanted to lead a luxurious life like the Nawabs of India. So, many of them were given huge lands and money by the local rulers in order to avoid any conflict with the company. And Robert Clive, he became, before becoming the governor of Bengal in 1764, he had become very rich in India, and because of this he was cross-examined by the British Parliament in 1772, and because the Parliament was suspicious of his vast wealth. So finally he was acquitted from all the charges and laid against him, but he committed suicide in 1774. I had given a detail left after, means afterwards, what happened to Robert Clive, to what happened to Mir Jafar, what happened to the others who have deceived. You can go through this in the pictures. Now, how the company rule expands. Now, children, East India Company had a different way of expanding its rule in India. It rarely launched any direct military attack or any on any Indian territory. It used a variety of political and economic methods to extend its influence. For instance, it appointed residents, that is, administrators, in Indian states after the Battle of Buxar in 1764. Now, the question arises, who were these residents? Residents were the political agents of the Britishers who served the interest of the company from the British side. Through them, the company started interfering in the internal affairs of the Indian states. One such interference was subsidiary alliance. According to this, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They had to keep company's army and pay their maintenance. If they failed to do so, the part of their territory was taken away as penalty by the Britishers. So, like this, in 1801, Lord Wellesley forced the Nawab of Awadh to give over half of his territory due to the non-payment of maintenance to the British Army, and same happened with Hyderabad also. Now, states like Hyderabad, Awadh, Gwalior, Indore, Udaipur, Jaipur, Jodhpur, etc., they all entered into this subsidiary alliance started by Governor General Lord Wellesley. Now, What about the southern part of India, especially Mysore? Children, Tipu Sultan, the tiger of Mysore, he was known as the tiger of Mysore. Now the company started facing threat both political and economically from Mysore. Mysore had grown into a strong state under King Hyder Ali from 1761 to 82, then his son Tipu Sultan from 1782 to 99. He was the son of King Hyder Ali. He was a very strong ruler, and he was named as the Tiger of Mysore because there was a story like he had fought with a tiger unarmed and killed that tiger. So he got this title. And in 1785, Tipu controlled the trade of Malabar coast and stopped the export of paper, sandalwood, and cardamom from his ports. He also stopped the local merchants to deal with the Britishers, and to modernize his army he employed the French into his army. So when Britishers came to know about this, they became furious and tried to suppress the power of Mysore. For this, four wars were fought between the Britishers and the Mysore, that is from 1767 to 69, 1780 to 84, 1789 to 92, and finally in 1799. So all these are known as the Anglo-Mysore War. Tipu was killed in the War of 1799 at Srirangapatnam. Now, Wadiyas became the king of Mysore with the condition of subsidiary alliance. So, after the problem of Mysore was sorted off, a new problem arose, that is through Marathas. So now you can see that there were several issues for the East Indian Company in different parts of India, and which affects its trade, and they go on expanding it, their trading and acquiring. Now, war with Marathas. Students, in the late 18th century, the company started facing problems from the Marathas, who were aiming to rule all over India through Delhi, which was taken as the seat of power at that time in India. So, Marathas were divided into many states under different chiefs belonging to dynasties such as Scindias, Holkars, Gaikwad, etc. So, they are held in an alliance under the Peshwa or the principal minister. So Mahadaji Scindia and Nana Padmanis were the two famous soldiers and statesmen of that period. Here, the company had to indulge in a war with Marathas to curb down their increasing power. So there are a number of wars fought between the Marathas and the Britishers. The first Anglo-Maratha War was held in during 1775 to 82. Then second war in 1803 to in 1805. The second Anglo-Maratha War resulted into the British gaining control over the Odisha, north of Yamuna, including Agra, Delhi, etc. And the third Anglo-Maratha War totally crossed the Maratha power, and Britishers got complete control over the territories and south of the Vindhyas. So we can say that the company had pursued aggressively in territorial expansion, and now they wanted something more, and that was the supremacy on whole India. And all this happened because of the political disunity, because of the mutual rivalry between the Marathas. And as I said, they wanted to have an supremacy. So to increase their influence over the Afghanistan, the British now took over the Sindh in an indirect and treacherous way. First, they signed a trade agreement with the rulers of Sindh, who were known as Amirs. Then, they prompted the Amirs to sign a subsidiary treaty with the British. And finally, irrespective of their assurance that they will regard it as freedom of Sindh, they taken over by the British in 1843. So, they fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan and established an indirect rule there. Got it, children? Because they were feared about the Russia might try to enter India from the northwest side. So they fought with the Afghanistan to establish the indirect rule. Done? Now, the last one was the Punjab, which was the last independent state to be annexed. And under Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who was a very strong and powerful king, it was a strong and disciplined. He had a strong and disciplined army, so they could not touch Punjab up to that time. But after his death, after the death of Maharaj Ranjit, there was a chaos in Punjab which was annexed by the British after two battles. So the first Anglo-Sikh war began in 1845, and even if Punjab army fought bravely, their leaders, some of the traitors, they deceived, and they were faced with the defeat. Finally, they had to sign the humiliating Treaty of Lahore on March 1846, and through which British annexed a large part of Punjab territory. And at last, in 1848, because of Lord Dalhousie, he got the opportunity to grab the to conquer the whole Punjab, and last independent state of India was finally taken over by the British in 1848. Done. Now we'll learn about the doctrine of lapse. Students, do you have any idea about this concept? So let me tell you, this type of annexation take place under the governorship of Lord Dalhousie from 1848 to 1856. Under this doctrine, any Indian king who doesn't have a natural male heir had to give away his territory to the Britishers. And with this policy, the company took control over Satara in 1848, Sambalpur in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Jhansi in 1854, and all of you must have heard that Jhansi, as you all know, is famous for its brave Queen Rani Lakshmibai. She was the widow of Raja Gangadhar Rao, and Jhansi was also annexed by the Britishers. Such incidents all over the country actually led to the revolt of 1857. And as the company had gained control over almost whole of the India, they had become the master of Indian land. So now there arises the need of administering of the acquired territories. So now we'll learn about the administrative policies of the East India Company. So students, the British administration in India was based on three pillars, that is civil services, army and police. Civil services mean the Lord Cornwallis, he established the Indian civil services because only well-trained civil servants can govern the Indian territories. Until 1853, all appointments to the civil services were made by the directors of the East India Company. But after 1853, the civil servants were recruited through a competitive examination. And as you know, all the high posts in the administrative were held by the Englishmen, and because the British did not trust the Indians, so they had given the lower post with lower salaries to the Indian persons. So because Indians were however appointed in large numbers, because they were readily available as compared to the Englishmen. And the first Indian to pass the civil service examination was Satyendranath Tagore, brother of Rabindranath Tagore. Now army, the second important pillar. With the help of the army, they defeated the Indian rulers, they defended the British Empire from the foreign rivals also, they suppressed the internal revolts also, and they also extended the British Empire in Asia and Africa. So the major part of the East India Company's army consisted of Indian soldiers, but they were never given any higher post. They were at most can become a subedar. Now third is police. The police was formed by Lord Cornwallis. He introduced a system in which a district was divided into number of thanas and each under a daroga, whose responsibility was to maintain peace and order, and also they were all the higher posts were exclusively given to the Britishers or the Englishmen, and they tried to end the crimes like Dakaiti, and also they were given the responsibility for suppressing the rise of any nationalist movement. The third one is the judicial organization. The British decided to dispense justice through a number of civil and criminal courts in 1865. The high courts were established in Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, etc. It was introduced as a rule of law, as a modern concept of the rule of law, that their administration was carried out according to the laws which defined the rights and duties of the people, and not according to the whims and fancies of the British authorities. But actually it was written only the concept, but there was no real benefit was given to any person in practical. That means they were never been practiced in real. The Europeans had separate courts and even separate laws. Criminal cases they could be tried only by the European judges. So justice becomes very expensive and very time taking. So it was never happened for the common people, common peasants or farmers of India. So justice became long. There was in long delays in the settlement of court cases. So East India Company transformed its rule into territorial powers too. Now, students, again to gain more profit, the British started smuggling opium into China. So they know that the profits from the opium trade would help them in finance their trade. So, alarmed by this dangerous trade, the Chinese government tried to stop it, but and this led to the Opium War. Between 1839 to 42, the Britain and China fought the war in which the Chinese were defeated, and as a penalty they had to open up 5 ports for the British where they could trade without paying the custom duty, and Hong Kong was also given to the British on a 99 years lease. So the British applied their own laws in these ports too. So students, now we come to the conclusion that how East India Company, which entered India in order to trade, they finally gained power over the territories, and how they became the ruler of our country, and they ruled us for nearly 200 years because of the conspiracies, internal quarrel, because of the political disunity. Because of all these reasons, the British defeated all our kings and regional kingdoms. Thanks for watching, students. In the next video I'll give you the exercise question answers and notes.